Hello and welcome to Christ the King Online. My name is Haley Judd, and this week's video is extra special because this week's video is dedicated to our beloved Father Rich, who just celebrated 35 years in the priesthood. So we wanted to do something special, so our Christ the King Online video this week is for you, Father. In addition, we only have one video this week. This is for all of us, for families, for adults, from our youngest to our oldest. We have one video for all of you this week. And this video was very spirit-led. God sort of took my plans and threw them out the window. So hopefully it's words that we all need to hear this week. And I think a good reminder for us all. It was certainly a good reminder for me. So today we're going to be talking about God and our happiness. God and our happiness. What does God have to do with our happiness? There seems to be an attitude that I encounter a lot in my interactions with people, both inside and outside of the church, that God doesn't want us to be happy, that God doesn't care about our happiness, that God sometimes works against our happiness. And this is what I want to take some time to address today. The question, does God want us to be happy? And as I hear from different people and see this attitude, I sort of have narrowed it down to sort of three main reasons or three main situations in which this attitude comes up of, well, God doesn't want us to be happy. The first we've already talked about in our very first adult Christ the King Online video. We talked about how to understand the bad things that happen in the world, and that God doesn't cause bad things. God doesn't give someone a sickness, but that sin has consequences, and the world is broken due to the consequences of sin, and so bad things happen. But God wants to redeem them and make something beautiful from it. So that's definitely one area. Something bad happens, and people think, God doesn't want me to be happy because he caused this. But we know that he didn't. Another area is morality, right? What we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do. And people think, God doesn't want me to be happy, clearly. And that's another great topic that I love to discuss, but we'll have to get into another time. Because the third area is what I want to focus in on today, which is the area of our vocation. When it comes to vocation, people seem to worry that God doesn't want us to be happy. They're worried that God's going to call them to a life they don't want. Okay, so backing up a sec, what is vocation? It's this big word that we use in the church. We also use it in society, and it sort of seems to mean a bunch of different things. So vocation is sort of an overarching word for what to do with your life. What are you going to do with your life? And we have three, the way I see it, sort of three tiers of vocation. We have a primary vocation. Every single person has a primary vocation to love God, to get to know God, to serve God. That is what we are called to do. We talked about that. We're created to love God in return for the love he gives us. That's your primary vocation. But after that, there's lifestyle vocations, if you will, or how you're going to love God. And there are a couple of them. We have the priesthood, we have religious life, single life, and married life. And there's the second tier of vocation. And then beneath that, we have our final tier, which is your careers and your hobbies and your passions and how you're going to spend your time and make your money, perhaps. So we have these different levels of vocation. But today I want to talk about this middle one, this calling to priesthood, religious life, single life, married life. People seem to fear that God is going to call them to something that will make them unhappy, something they don't want. So where does that come from? And does God want us to be happy? Well, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which has all our teachings on Catholicism, actually has a section in it called the desire for happiness. Woohoo! It's right in our catechism, easy to find, the desire for happiness. And in paragraph 1718, we read this: the natural desire for happiness is of divine origin. So God gave us our natural desire for happiness. God has placed it in the human heart in order to draw man to the one who alone can fulfill it. So God gave us our desire for happiness because he alone can fulfill it. So that if you feel that, oh, I want to be happy, if you follow that all the way to what will truly satisfy it, you'll find God. So he gave us our desire for happiness. So he wants us to be happy. So why then do we feel like God is getting in the way of our happiness so often, or so many people think God doesn't want us to be happy? Well, maybe we have the wrong definition of what happiness is. A lot of times I think we think happiness is XYZ. Happiness is a big house. Happiness is a big family. Happiness is the right job. Happiness is trips to the beach or the mountains. And we can often fall into the trap of, I'll be happy when. This is something I have had to watch in my own life, and I think is very common. I'll be happy when I'm out of school. I'll be happy when I'm married. I'll be happy when my kids are older. I'll be happy when I'm retired. Last week we talked about spiritual warfare, and this is actually a form of spiritual warfare. If we're always focused on the future and always thinking the grass is greener on the other side, we miss the only chance we actually have to live and to be happy in the present. And so we have these false ideas of what happiness is or when happiness will come. And so it can seem that God gets in the way of our happiness because we're thinking about it wrong. So what is true happiness? Well, a little bit later on in that section in our catechism, in paragraph 1723, we read, "True happiness is not found in riches or well-being, in human fame or power, or in any human achievement, however beneficial it may be, such as science, technology, and art, or indeed in any creature, but in God alone, the source of every good and of all love." So let's back up and go through that. True happiness is not riches. So it's no possession you can have. It's not well-being. So true happiness is not found in health. It's not in human fame or power. It's not in human achievement, in anything that you can do in your life, as beneficial as it may be, it says, as wonderful as your accomplishments may be. True happiness is not found there, and it's also not found in any creature. Not in any other person can you find true happiness, but in God alone. Okay, Haley, great. Thank you for reading that passage. But what does that look like? Well, I want to tell you a story. And it's a story about a man named Horatio Spafford. And you may not have ever heard the name of Horatio Spafford, but he wrote a song called "It Is Well." It's a hymn. And not many people know the story behind the hymn. And I'd like to share that with you today. So Horatio, he was a successful attorney and a real estate investor who lost a fortune in a great Chicago fire of 1871. Around the same time, his beloved 4-year-old son died of scarlet fever. So a successful man who lost what he had and then lost his son. Thinking a vacation would do his family some good, he sent his wife and 4 daughters on a ship to England, planning to join them after he had finished some pressing business at home. However, while crossing the Atlantic Ocean, the ship was involved in a terrible collision and sunk. More than 200 people lost their lives, including all 4 of Horatio's precious daughters. His wife Anna survived. Upon arriving in England, she sent a telegram to her husband that began, "Saved alone, what shall I do?" Horatio immediately set sail for England. At one point during his voyage, the captain of the ship, aware of the tragedy that had struck his family, summoned Horatio to tell him that they were now passing over the spot where the shipwreck occurred. As Horatio thought about his daughters, words of comfort and hope filled his heart. He wrote them down, and they have become this hymn that I would just like to share one piece of with you today. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, It is well with my soul. That was a man who knew where true happiness was found in God alone. So to back up and summarize this, God gave us our desire for happiness, that desire we all have burning within us to be happy. And so there is no need to fear when it comes to vocation. God is not going to call you to a life of misery, of true misery when we know what true happiness is. God will call you to the life that will give you the most happiness that He has in store for you. But it's important to remember when it comes to vocation, we're not talking about a choice, but a call. It's not that you make a choice, but that you answer a call from God, that He will call you to your proper vocation. And just like Mary, our challenge is to say yes to that call when it comes. And so today, I want to thank Father Rich for answering his call and for saying yes. And I hope you'll join me in thanking him. I encourage you to pray for Father Rich, to reach out to him, write him thank you notes, send him pictures, reach out to him in a special way at this time to thank him for answering the call and for all that he does for us on a daily basis. And for you, whether you are in your vocation and you want to do some praising God to thank him for his call in your vocation, or whether you're still deciding, or perhaps you're a parent and you're guiding your children toward their vocation. It's time to do some thinking about how can we better hear what God is calling us to, and to come to trust that God will guide us to the path of happiness. Thank you for joining me today, and I wish you all the happiness in the world, and I'll see you soon.